Hello, and welcome to Creativity with Don Allen III Live. Today, we're going to be working on the final process of this cat, which is rigging. We're going to work on rigging this cat. Now, this cat was made for a customer. They don't want to be named yet, but I try to match the photographs that they gave me of the cat. So I found this, perfect version here. Got the idea for like the fur color and the hands and stuff. And then I used this reference image here to kind of make sure I got a good close up of the face and kind of projected those things. Got these really shiny eyeballs so that we get the nice kind of life breath into them. And yeah, so I'm really happy with the way the painting came out. This was painted inside of a program called Adobe Substance 3D Painter. And without the, I'll show you again real quick with this thing, here's what it looks like a taxidermy cat. I kind of had to split up the model and project some textures and then do some paint overs to kind of blend some of the hard edges. And if you look at this cat, it's actually divided up into lots of different materials. So this was its base material, base color, and then we have like a height map. I use this to kind of make hair stand out off of the cat. So that's what the white areas are actually, they have height. And then we go into more depth. We have roughness. You can see that some parts of the fur are more or less rough. And when we combine all this data together, we get this final output of this. So this is my final cat in the texturing. So now that we've finished texturing and modeling the cat, we're going to move on to rigging. I started to do the rigging last night, but then ran into some problems. So I'm going to be starting off with looking at actual anatomy of cat bones, because that's actually how you get stuff to rig. The best is you just study nature. Turns out nature has already solved pretty much all the 3D problems. Rigging, texturing, modeling. Nature pretty much answered all those questions already. So we're just trying to like mimic what nature's already solved for. And if you're joining us on YouTube, welcome. I'll be checking the live chat in there. Please ask your questions on the YouTube side. I'll be able to answer them. And let's get right into it. So I placed these bones into the cat. There's a lot of bones in the cat system right now. So many bones. And some of them worked out pretty well. So for example, if I grab like this left knee and bend it, it worked out kind of well. You see like stuff is breaking, like it's pulling anatomy from the stomach. So what we need to do is fix our rigging. That's what we're going to be doing right now. So to fix rigging, we're going to grab our character and switch Cinema 4D to its rigging context. These are called weight paints, and they're fun, kind of. What they are is each color is showing what part of the bone influences what part of the body. So you probably can see the problems that we're already facing right now. With the auto rigging, it screwed up some stuff. And also I'm noticing that I have bad placement of bones in the shoulders. I didn't realize that a cat's shoulder is actually way more up high than I thought. So we're actually going to delete all of the weight paint and start that process over again, since that will make it easier to follow. So I just deleted all the weight paint, so now the bones don't move any part of the body. So if I move a bone, we should expect that the geometry will stay put. It's not going to move with the character for now. So what we're going to do to get the rigging working is someone sent me a DM. They worked at a vet, and they said that I had the bone of the shoulder in the wrong place. And I'm so happy they mentioned that because I was having some troubles. And so I found this reference of a cat, and I see that its shoulder is so much more, it's so up high. Like I totally wasn't expecting that. So what I'm going to do is move these over like that. So I'm going to grab my bones of my arms, if I can find them. There's my right arm. And I'm going to just move both my right arm and my left arm joint uh, way up high. So holding 7 allows you to drag it in orthographic view. And I can drag these bones and put them up more like aligned with where the photograph has their shoulders, which are kind of, more high, a lot higher than I had known. All right, so just kind of placing the shoulders up in there. And then that means we can set our elbow joints need to be way up high as well. So I'm going to use 7 to drag these elbow joints up high. So that it looks like this part of the cat's body is not going to really bend at all, which I didn't realize. So the only bending that happens in the cat looks like it's right at its paws. I mean, I guess the bending is also like right here, so it's kind of a weird spot. I didn't when I modeled this, I didn't leave much space for an elbow to bend too much, so we'll have to be careful with how we rig the corners there. Let's look at the other parts of the bones. Only thing I'm noticing with the feet is I might want to move the bones of the feet down a little bit as well, so that we can rotate from the ankle more smoothly. So I'm going to grab both bones in the feet, holding 7, and then move those downward so that we get a kind of a flat paw, and it'll hopefully be a little bit easier for me to rig these with that placement there. Okay. I also ran into some issues with the amount of weights that were in the face. So what do I mean by that? Well, I tried to put a bone here to control like the snout, but it caused a lot of weight problems. So I'm going to grab that bone and just delete it. I think it was this bone. Yeah, this bone here at joint number 10 was causing me a lot of problems. I was trying to think of like moving the upper body, like moving the upper head together like this, but I don't think that's actually the right way moving forward. So I think it should all just be attached to this bone. This bone, I think, should control the head position. So what we'll do is, yeah, what we'll do is just make sure that our head position is in a little bit better spot. So I'm going to delete bone 8, or no, or bone 10. I'm just going to get rid of it. A bunch of bones underneath it. Okay, maybe I'll move the joints that are attached to joint 10. I'm going to make them child objects of the head controller. So I'm going to grab joints 11 and then make them child objects. It might be helpful by naming these. So I'm going to call this head. This is the head layer. I want to make sure that I'm binding these bones to the head instead of the snout. That way, when we do get to moving our head, we'll be able to have one controller that will move all the face like this. Now we can probably safely get rid of joint number 10, which was kind of not needed. So I'm just going to delete that joint there, and then maybe even get rid of one of the joint 11s. If we were to hide our geometry, for example, so I go to display, filter, and then geometry only. If I go to presets, we can go to filter. Or what I'll do is I'll do X-ray mode. So I'm going to grab my cat and turn the cat into an X-ray scan so we can see through it more easily. And now that we're in X-ray mode, just want to point out, so how I rigged the eyeballs is I'm placing a bone right at the center axis of the back of the eye, and that way I'll be able to rotate the eyes freely. And I honestly think I don't need this bone. It's this weird bone in their face that I don't really feel like we need anymore. So let me try to find out where that bone lives, and then I'm going to delete it. I think it's causing some problems. So looking for that bone. Oh, there's joint 11. Let me delete that. There we go. Just trying to simplify the rigs. I think I complicated the rig last night, which is why I was having a lot of problems. But now I want to uncomplicate it. And let's say maybe this bone here that's controlling the ears, it shouldn't be coming out from that spot. So I'm going to go find that bone. It looks like it's 2 bones. And then I'm going to hold the number 7. 7 lets you move a bone without pushing other bones out of the way. So I'm just going to push this kind of up in here. Do we need this bone? Because all we really need is the ears. This bone is kind of just in the way. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of joint 11 then. So I'm going to grab my 2 ears and just attach my ears to the head controller and get rid of that unneeded bone. There we go. So just trying to clean up the rig, simplify stuff as much as possible. Even the eyeballs, I don't know if should we have, yeah, actually I'll keep those. All right, so I think I simplified the rig a little bit here. Let's go take a look at the cattail. I think that's not a problem. The cattail was very simple to rig. And then the cat legs. Maybe we should push the knees a bit more forward. Put the spine, I kind of add a little bit of a curve to the spine. But now I'm looking at it, it looks like the shoulders really do go right up to the top. So I'm going to try to find my shoulder controller, which looks like it's right about here. I'm going to call this shoulders, SHLDRS, shoulders. We're going to take the shoulder control, hold 7. I'm going to push the shoulders up a little bit higher in the cat's body and a little bit more forward. That way we get that nice little bend in the shoulders there when the cat is moving its head around. We're also going to need to move around some of the neck controls. So we have our spine. I would say this is like, I'm going to call this tailbone. So we got our hips, our spine. That's actually, I'm going to name this spine 1. And this one is going to be spine 2. That one here will be spine 3. It's important to name your bones because it gets confusing without seeing the name of your bones later on when you start animating. I guess we'll call this one spine 4. So we have four vertebrae for the spine. So we're not going to be doing that much bending in the spine. We have our shoulder bones. Cool, these are our shoulders. Then we have our left front arm and our left front forearm. I'm going to copy that name here. That forearm. And then we'll call this one the paw. This is left front paw, LF, left front underscore paw. Great. And then we have our right front arm, and we have our right front forearm. Yeah, rigging is not everyone's favorite part, but if you want to have really cool animations, you totally need it. Right front underscore paw. Okay, let's just save our work in case something crashes. All right, moving down, we have this next one here. So this one, initially I had the neck bone here, but now that I've moved the shoulders, I want to maybe centralize the neck. Oh, actually, I'm looking at this cat head. Looks like its head controller is way near the top back part of the skull. It's a lot different than what I have here. So I'm going to grab that set of bones. There's the bones. I'm going to grab the head controller. You know what I might do too is I might start colorizing my layers so I can see them more easily. So I'm just going to add this to a layer. So I'm going to go to just adding the layer doesn't really do anything but change the color on it. So just by clicking on a thing and then add to a new layer, it now has like a nice little blue dot there. You can change that color to anything. I'm just going to leave it as that blue dot. It's my head controller. And it looks like the cat head actually has the bones not in the central column of their neck like I thought, but rather towards the top back part of the brain. So I'm going to move my head controller up there. The reason why we're even doing this is because this is how we get really realistic movement out of your characters. If you replicate the way that bones and anatomy works in nature, your characters are going to have a form of life to them that is familiar and nice. So it's totally worth the effort to set up these bone systems in a way that is aligned with how nature would have placed the bones. I like to follow nature's suggestions because it has the best form. They've had millions of years of rigging. I've had only as old as I am of rigging. So clearly nature is going to have the edge. Okay, looking at the jawbone. So I kind of screwed up with the jaw a little bit. I kind of just want to move just the little lower mouth part and not like the whole jaw, just in case I want the cat to like meow or something. So what we'll do is just grab that joint here, and I'm just going to slide it forward, kind of making the bone a little bit smaller, so that it's only really responsible for that lower jaw. I'll just have like the mouth kind of be like boop 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 boop, So that is a little bit easier. I'm not going to move the upper mouth. That was causing too many problems with the whiskers. Also, these whiskers have been a total nightmare for rigging. In hindsight, I wish I just combined. You know what? How about this? Maybe what I'll do is I'll delete the whiskers for now, and then I'll just parent them to the head controller at the end. Like I'll just put them as a child object. That might be the way to fix it. 'Cause these whiskers were so problematic. All the whiskers, the eyebrows included, they just, you know, they weren't having it. So I might just temporarily delete all the whiskers because they really destroyed the rig. All right, next thing I'm gonna do is move the center column of the ears so that when I rotate the ears, it rotates from the proper location. So again, let's just keep hitting save in case something crashes. I don't want to re-rig this character again. We're gonna go to the ears, which is somewhere in there. Where are the ears? Oh, here's the ears. These two joints. So I'm gonna grab these two joints and holding 7 to move the base of the ears and maybe even scaling these in, holding 7, kind of move these bones at the nice base of our friendly cat here. Oops, now I'm just really just placing the bones where we want to have the motion. And again, I can't stress how important it is to follow nature. Nature's already solved every problem with regards to rigging, modeling, and texturing. So you should just use nature as your guide. Um, I'm like a major techie, and I'm telling you that nature is important for like the future of technology. I think if we want technology to be the dopest, it should just mirror what nature does. So yeah, it's my own philosophy on that. Okay, so the eyeballs are placed there nicely. We got a bone for each eyeball. We have a bone to control both eyes. Actually, that's kind of a weird bone. What is it? Two eyes. Wait, no, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Or actually, wait, maybe I should actually just have one bone connecting the two eyes, and then it does it, and then it can like split off into a T shape here. That might be a little bit cleaner on the model. Let's see if we can do that. So we have left eye and right eye. Oh no, I can't do that because the head joint is just one. So I would have to make the left eye and the right eye on the same group. I don't want to do that. Scratch that. Okay, let's just do another quick save. All right, so what I'm going to do to not make myself sad and angry is I'm going to delete, or I'm just going to separate the whiskers for the time being from the model because they were seriously problematic. So to grab my whiskers, I just do a double click inside the polygons, and that will select all of the geometry. The whiskers are actually three-dimensional. They're not, I didn't sculpt, they're not two-dimensional planes. They're all three-dimensional columns. So I'm just going to grab all my whiskers, highlighting them first, kind of group them all together. Okay, let's make sure we grabbed all the whiskers. Oh, whoa! Look at that. That was the other problem I faced. There's like two sets of whiskers that were overlaying on each other, and my rig wasn't touching one of them, so it kept leaving whiskers in their place. I'm going to copy these, delete them, and then make a new layer to paste the safe whiskers. Whoa, it actually could be the whole rig. I don't know if it could be copied. I just wanted just the whiskers in here, so I'm going to call this one whisk. These are my whiskers. Great. And then I'm going to hide my whiskers. And then it looks like we can delete these little hidden suckers, whiskers. These also cause problems in rigging because they were like overlaid on top of existing geometry. I wasn't able to click on them without moving the bones, and then that would cause deformation. So I'm just going to delete those. So now our whiskers on a separate layer, which I think is going to dramatically help our rigging process because we won't have to worry. I'll just parent them to like I might end up regretting that now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know which bone to parent these because if we move, I guess I'll parent them to the same bone that's controlling the eyeballs because that's kind of like in the central location. So good. So I'm going to rename this to cat body, and then we have our whiskers, and we also have the head occluder because this is going to be an AR filter. So it's on. Oh yeah, day 2. We're fixing up the rigging. Right. So we are live streaming to YouTube right now. So for everybody that's tuning in, thanks for tuning in. We'll keep at it. All right. So I'm pretty happy now with where I placed the bones, mostly because we mimicked how nature places bones in bodies of models. So I try to replicate the shape of like how their jaw was more of like a downwards thing, and then kind of made it nice like that. Like basically pasting the head bone, the head controller right near the top of the cat's head, just like they have it right here at the base of the brainstem. Excuse me. So give me one little second to take a beat to read an email. Um, mhm, mhm. Okay. What's their emails so we can add them to the list? What? Relate to the RSVP. We have proof. Oh, Oh, sorry. I'm trying to go to an AR conference today. Actually, Sasha's supposed to be there. I'll probably be able to meet you, Sasha, along with other awesome AR developers. But I forgot to RSVP yesterday, so just give me 1 second to RSVP for that event, and then I think I have to have a meeting at 1. So we gotta wrap this up soon. All right. So um, let me reply real quick. Give me 1 second. Hi, Don Allen. Excited to have you here. What's their email so we can add them to the list? Okay, great. So let me reply to them, their email. Give me 1 second. We have my email, and then we have their email. Hey, Boo, what's your email again? Or thanks, love. Cool. Email.com. And I'm just gonna thank them really quick for inviting us. Thank you so much for getting us on the RSVP list. Here are our emails. All right, that's for later. It is still kind of a work day for me, so let me just get back. All right, cool. We're back to rigging. All right, so the bones are pretty much placed where we want them to go, I think. I readjusted the bone placement of the shoulder. I had no idea that a cat's shoulder is like in their neck, kind of. And then the knee bones, looks like the knees are a little bit higher than what I have in here. Maybe I should raise the knees up a little bit. Huh? I'm gonna try that. Let's raise the knees. So I'm gonna go to spine, shoulders, tail, and then grab my right and left knee, or left and right knee. And we're just gonna move those up with the 7 controller to closer up there. It's kind of a weird spot for a knee, isn't it? Is that where a cat's knee is? Hold on. Let's look at some real bones. Oh no, they are a little bit lower. All right, so I'm gonna move them back. Oops. We hold 7. We can move just the knees. Hey Don, I don't understand, but it looks good. Oh wow, thanks, Boss Flow. I appreciate that. Well, what we're doing right now is creating the bones. So like we have bones in our own body, and because we have bones, we're able to tie all of our geometry, in this case, tissues, muscles, fats, skin. We're able to tie all that geometry of our body and have a structure to it because we have bones. So if I wanted to move some geometry in the way that bones would, we would need to create virtual bones. So this is literally this is a cat's bones anatomy. I'm copying it. I'm copying where they place bones on real life cats. I'm copying that inside of this virtual cat that we made yesterday, so that this cat will move properly when I start to animate it. So what we're doing is we're giving it virtual bones. Right now the bones are not bound to the geometry, which means if I move, for example, this bone, it will move all the bones in there, but it's not going to move the geometry, because the next step that we're going to be doing is called binding, which is what will make it so that when we move a bone, it will move the geometry that it's close to. Fast Flow says, I see, this bone structure will make the animation look more natural. Exactly. And without it, it looks really bad. So for example, I had no idea that a cat's shoulder is so up high, like right under here. And so I actually initially placed the cat's shoulder here, and then I moved this kneecap down here. And a follower who works in a vet told me that that's not where cats' bones are. And I looked up the anatomy and I was like, oh, you're totally right. I need to fix this so that I get the correct motion out of the character when it's animated. Because not having the bone there in the right spot would make it, not bend properly. But I think it's in the right spot now. Probably I might be able to slide the forearms away from each other. Let me just grab my left and right forearm. I'm just going to temporarily slide these apart so they're just a little bit more aligned there. Another rule of thumb I try to do with rigging is you want to place the bone where you want it to have the most influence. So like, even though I know the bone isn't really literally at that corner, because we have that reference, it's like more central, like the joint is more in the central location. But since I need to really don't want the rig to break, I'm kind of forcing the bone to bend a little bit further back so that it's a little bit easier for me to do weight painting later. Sometimes you kind of have to break the rig, and then I don't really plan on moving the hips too much, even though I'm really happy with the way the hips are moving. But what we could have done is we could add another bone break right here and then place those breaks up in here so that we get this kind of lateral movement of the upper leg. But I don't really plan on showing the legs too much. So sometimes we add bones that they don't have, is what I was trying to say, just so that we can have a certain type of animation come across in the piece. Okay, oh, we got some questions on the YouTube stream. So thank you for the folks that are joining us on YouTube. Let me take a look at your questions. Lloyd Alvarado says, hello, I am new to rigging, but I'm here to learn with you. You are getting the message across with what you have. Oh, wow, yay, thank you so much. Cool, that's the goal, trying to make stuff accessible, because I want to see people make, non-real life characters. Like, what if you want to make a dragon? You should still follow anatomy of like animals, because that's how your dragon's going to look real. In fact, when we worked on How to Train Your Dragon for How to Train Your Dragon, the DreamWorks movie, a lot of the bone references that they have for the dragons were actually cats and dogs, because people already love cats and dogs quite a lot. So if you want people to love a dragon, make it like what people already love, which is cats and dogs. So if you look at the behavior of a lot of characters in DreamWorks movies, even if it's like a dragon, which we don't really have a real reference for, we would reference nature, cats and dogs, because they're super awesome. Oh, we got a question from Lucky 400 Hades. Says, what program are we using? Right now we're using Cinema 4D. It's one of my favorite 3D programs. It's not free though, so what I recommend if you're trying to get into 3D, I would say start off with Blender. Blender is fantastic and it's free and it can do everything that you would want to do. All right, so we're going to grab our cat body and I'm going to hide the occluder head there. Actually, I'll just keep it, it's fine. Okay, so what we're going to do next is bind our bones to the cat so that when we move a joint, like a leg, for example, right now when I move my left front leg, it moves the bones, but it's not moving the geometry. We want it to move the geometry. So how we do this is first we got to go to all of our bones and expand all of them. So I select all of them and I right click and choose Unfold All. That way I'm able to see all the bones in our whole system. We have a lot of bones. Then I'm going to grab all the bones in order, holding shift, and then we hold control to grab the geometry that we want to bind it to. So I just ended it with the geometry of the cat. Next we go to character tags. Next we go to character, and then we choose bind. Ta-da! You'll see all these magical colors appear. Oh, we have a question from Lloyd Alvarado on YouTube. Says, do you have any good tutorials for low poly? Yeah, I should. I should on my YouTube channel. I probably have some in there, but I would just recommend look up low poly modeling tutorials on YouTube in general. Okay, so what you see right now is weight. These colorful areas are called weight paint. Weight paint is a way that we can see what parts of the model are influenced by what bone. Now, you can see things like the tail were modeled, were weight painted really nicely. But we see things like the leg were not. You see how it thinks that this bone in the upper leg is supposed to move this part of the body underneath the abdomen. I'll show you how this is incorrect. So if we grab, for example, that bone. Oh, actually, wait, that's the hips. Maybe that's okay. Let's say if I grab this bone here, when I move this leg now, you see how it's doing the right thing and it's moving our leg back and our lower leg and our shin, but it's also moving this flesh in the side of the belly. So the way that we need to fix this is using a process called weight painting. So I'm going to hide the head occluder object, and then let's go to our weight paint brush. And with our weight paint brush, we just erase the areas that a bone should not influence. This is so important because we want it to work. We want it to move correctly. And it's not going to move correctly unless we have proper weight distributions. So I just kind of moved it like that. Maybe want to remove some of the influence in the inner leg like that, underneath the belly, underneath the butt. Cool. And then I like to smooth out that influence by holding shift and drawing over a bone area. It smooths out the influence. So now when we move the leg, now it only moves the leg and it doesn't move that lower belly part. This is why we do weight painting. It's so that we get organic movements. We get, maybe, actually you can use it for non-organic movements. I take it back. You want to get movements that match what you want. And you have to do weight painting if you want bones to influence the right set of bones. And we just got to do it bone by bone by bone. Sometimes when you have a really simple rig, you're in luck, and in lucky instances, your bones will just work. But when you have a more complicated rig like we have right now, I have a quadruped character. We have 4 legs. The character has a tail. It also has ears and has eyes. All of this makes up for a much more complicated rig, and so the automatic weight painting is almost never going to be correct. So again, for example, we're looking at the back right leg. Right now, when I try to rotate my back right leg, it's also moving the belly. So we want to fix that by using our weight paint brush and remove the influence that it automatically drew up for us. We want to remove that influence. So I'm just going through and just removing influence where I don't really want it to impact. And then I like to smooth out the difference. So I hold shift to smooth out and create a gradient of weight influence around the joints. I think I get much more nice motion that way. And now when we move the leg, it looks correct. Now we're only moving the cat leg, and that's great. Ooh, we got a question from Lloyd Alvarado on YouTube. Says, that is so cool, the weight brush. How do you feel about Gravity Sketch for game design? Hoping to make my workflow all in VR, no rush to answer. I got you. I'm a big fan of Gravity Sketch. I honestly think it's a fantastic tool for game developers, for AR developers, for production artists, for fashion designers, virtual fashion artists. It's a fantastic tool. I actually use Gravity Sketch for a lot of my workflow. I actually recommend you start off in Gravity Sketch because you get to have like 2 eyes on everything and the manipulations are so smart. However, right now I don't really trust rigging inside of Gravity Sketch. You can't really rig stuff. So there is a VR application called Master VR, Master Stream. I can't remember what it's called. Masterclass VR, and they do allow you to do basic rigging inside of VR. It's not that great though. So until I can do rigging in VR, I won't have a fully VR workflow. But I think in the next 5 years, we'll have a really nice VR solution for that. Okay, let's just take a look at our ankles. Yeah, that looks like good motion on the little bottom of the feet. Looks really cute. Let's try the other foot here. Great, that looks good as well. All right, so great. The legs are good. I would say the legs are good to go. Next, let's go to the tail. Let's take a look at the tail. That looks like the proper movement for that bone. That looks like the proper movement for this bone. Yep. Skip around a little bit. Yeah, so the tail looks like it rigged out nicely. The reason why the tail had no problems being rigged was it was super simple. We just have a chain of bones and basically a cylinder. So the program doesn't have to really think that way, and it makes it really easily rigged. All right, now let's get into complicated areas. So this one's weird. So I have a spine right here. So you see how the spine right now is only moving the green areas? This is going to become a problem for us later because we had to eliminate some of that weight paint underneath the belly. So if we were to grab all of the character, you'll now see that the bottom of the cat doesn't really have much weight influence. So what I'm going to do to fix this is first go to the hip controller, and I'm going to make sure that the under part of the legs are influenced by the hips, so that when I move my hips around, we'll be able to move that kind of back of the cat. Actually, it looks like it's pretty good. I don't know why the hips want to move this part of the skin. I'm gonna get rid of that influence. They really shouldn't move this part. And also, I forgot to show you this. They have a symmetry tool. So if you go to your weight paintbrush options, they have a symmetry. You can turn it on, and this will save you time, so that you're not having to paint both sides, which is even more reasons why when you're sculpting and modeling your characters, before they're rigged, you want to be modeling them in a symmetrical pose. Otherwise, the rigging artist, the technical rigger who's going to work on your model, is going to be suffering if you don't have a symmetrical model. Now, some characters aren't symmetrical in design. You know, they might have like a giant claw on one hand, another claw on another. And in that case, that's fine because it's required. Like you need to have something that's asymmetrical. But when you can have symmetry when you're rigging, you should always go for it. It's gonna save everybody a lot of headaches, and that's a good thing, I think. All right, so what I'm doing right now is just creating some influence. So even though we have like a rib cage normally in here, I'm not really going to be adding ribs to my model because I don't want to. But you'll see that this starts to create some problems. So what you're seeing here is, you see how there's like these points that are getting left behind here? This is the result of, well, a lot of problems actually. Let me see if I can fix some of this. So sometimes you'll start seeing that happen where you're trying to do your weight painting, but then it keeps like erasing parts of your model, and other parts don't move with it. And that usually is about the weights aren't painted evenly yet. So we kind of need to work on that. It's gonna be the hardest part. And I basically ran into these problems with the face last night, which is why we had to kind of do day 2. But one fix for it is to grab both sets of bones at the same time, and then grab the weight tool, and then hold shift to smooth out the data between them. So I'm grabbing 2 different bones right now, and I'm distributing their weight influence more evenly between the 2. And now let's see if that fixes some of those weird kinked up areas. So let's try the back here. It's a little bit better. Eek. It's not the best though. Let's try the next bone. Oh, because the next bone is not painted either. And that one's not painted. So let me maybe continue to fill in their paint areas. This bone as well, and try to do the same thing. Kind of grab the outer ribs here, go underneath the armpits of the cat. I'm just holding shift to hopefully smooth out the transition. And let's grab all of the spine, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and use that shift tool to kind of even out their distributions. Kind of fun to paint these weird colors onto your model, but know that these are just weight paint. This is telling what bones get to influence what part of the geometry. No one will actually see these colors other than the rigging person. Okay, so I think that's a lot better distribution of weight in the ribs. So let's take a look. That's a lot better. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but I'm also not going to be bending the character that much. But do you see how, man, I don't have a fix for this to be honest yet. If your weight is painting on 2 areas at once, then what ends up happening is you get this doubling effect where that's not great. But what I might do is when I'm animating this character, I might just do very subtle animations of the spine, where I might just do little twists, little twists and bending here and there. And if you're just going to keep it really subtle, that's fine. But if I handed this to an animator at a studio, they wouldn't be happy with this, because look what happens if I move this bone. See how it's like shooting out the ribs like that? Mm-mm-mm. I don't really have the best fix for this yet, to be honest. What I've been doing is just going back to them and then erasing them and just starting over. So I'm going to erase this real quick. So now they have no influence. Oh, let's take a look. Oh, I see, but it still is influencing the downstream stuff. All right, so basically I just eliminated all the power of the ribs. So let me bring the ribs back online. Just be careful. I probably will avoid animating the ribs, the back, and spine. I just won't do that because um, I don't I don't have the need to do that for the character. Okay, so that's a bad lesson right there. You know, if I'm still trying to grow in my rigging abilities, and that's one area I definitely weaken is like when there's two weights that are influencing each other. I don't really know the best way to like eliminate the doubling effect. So I'm just going to ignore it for now. I'm going to hit save and we'll ignore it for now. Because maybe we don't need to have all that influence in the shoulders. All right, so now we're on the next part. We're on the shoulders. I'm going to move that around. That's actually looking pretty good for the shoulder movement. I'm seeing a little bit of a weird wobble in the stomach area, but if I'm just keeping it really subtle, I think that's fine. Let's take a look at the left arm. Oh, there we go. This is probably why we're having problems. So right now it thinks that this arm should be controlling the side of the character like this, when it definitely should not be. So I'm going to switch this to projection mode and eliminate that influence over here. I'll probably keep that influence there and just soften that transition. And now if we move this bone, oh wow, we're still getting that weird stomach thing happening. We saw that stomach wants to move with this arm. I don't really know why. I don't really see the influence of the paint. Let's turn off our display grid. See if I see any paint in there. I don't see any paint in there. I don't know why it's moving the. I don't know why it wants to move the belly. Oh, I see. The left forearm is attached to the belly. Jeez. So maybe what I'll do first is grab all of the left arm components and just make sure that all of them are not touching the belly, since that's always going to be the wrong way to move the bones in my case. So I'm just eliminating that influence from all the bones in the arm. I don't want them to touch the belly, because it wouldn't make sense. If you move your arm, your belly should stay still because it's not directly attached. The only time you want weight paint like this to influence areas is if you want that motion to contribute if you want any kind of position, rotation, or scale movement to influence another area. Let's try it now. So now if we move our left forearm, okay, there we go, that's much better. So now, yeah, that looks much cleaner. Get a nice bend there. Belly flap. Hashtag belly flap. So now we're getting much better bending of the arm, and that's the upper shoulder. Let's take a look at the left forearm. This one's looking a little funky. That's okay though. And then let's look at that looks good. Okay, cool. Let's do the next one. Also, it always helps to go back a few bones and just make sure that other stuff isn't breaking randomly. Oh, actually, that looks pretty good. But now this makes more sense. So maybe some of the spine problems that we were having earlier were related to the fact that the arms were pulling on the spine. So now, I mean, we're still getting problems if we go super extreme, but I'm not going to do that extreme of motion for the cat. I mostly will keep it right in this area of motion. These are like our maximums. I'm not going to really go more than like 18 degrees of rotation in any of these. But if you were, then you'd want to add those influences. Okay. This is a weird one. The shoulders are trying to influence this weird spot. No, I don't want it to do that. That's the responsibility of the spine. So I'm smoothing out that influence, getting rid of that problem. And now let's make sure that it's okay. Yeah, you want to keep moving your rig. Every time you do a new bone that you paint, you want to keep moving the upstream and the downstream bones to make sure that you didn't create some kind of cascading problem. That's something I screwed up last night. Was I went through and I did all the weight painting for the whole character thinking it was all good, and then I went to go test out the bones rotations, and then I found out that there was influence of bones that I did not want and did not expect, and they caused a lot of problems. So I just want to remind you folks that if you're going to do that, um, for each new bone, like each new part of a body, you want to, after you finish weight painting it, go a couple bones back and make sure that the rotation is fine. If it's not, then you don't want to move forward because then you're just going to have a huge nightmare to fix versus a tiny nightmare to fix. All right, right now I'm doing the weight paint for this other shoulder. I wanted to thank the folks in the in the DMs last night that worked at the vet that told me where a cat's shoulder actually is, and I trust a vet a lot more than me in knowing where the anatomy of a cat is. And by placing the shoulder up high, it actually gives us a lot better motion in the cat because that's where the cat bone normally is. All right, let's go to the forearm. Same idea. I'm going to grab all the arms here and just erase the influence on the belly. I don't know why these arms feel compelled to influence the belly's position. We don't want them to influence the belly's position because they're arms. These are arms. They're not bellies. The only time we want it to kind of influence is when we transition from an arm into a belly. So just in the transition times, that's when we do this gradient color of influence versus the more solid the color is, that's basically 100% of a color is 100% influence, and then 0% of the color is zero influence. So when we transition between parts, we want to have a gradient. We want a gradient in between parts because, well, we are all attached eventually. Most animals are all attached into like a single system. Yeah, now we're getting much better movement. Let's bring up the wireframe. So now let's take a look at the bending forward. Ooh, I'm getting this one little mystery pixel that keeps shooting out by the belly. Don't know what that's about. Let's see if I can fix that in a second. Is it this bone? Oh yeah, it's that. Is it connected to the paw? No, paw is separate. So it looks like the forearm. Let's switch it to our point class mode and go to our weight paint brush. And I'm just going to keep erasing them here, hoping that the blanket solved the problem. So let's go back to our leg here, and let's see if we can rotate it. Yay, the leg is free. Cool, no extra things. Oh, hello, Nepsley. Thanks for being here. All right, so we got it. We got the cat leg done. Let's take a look at the paw, make sure the paw is bending properly. Good. Let's save our work. All right, let's again, we finished the arm, but don't do it yet. We want to go back to the shoulders and make sure the shoulders are working. You see, look at that. There's a problem. Looks like there's some bones underneath the armpits that have no influence. Whenever you see parts of the pixels not move at all like this, you see how they're like literally locked underneath the armpit? That means those are polygons that have zero weight paint. So we need to give them weight paint so that they do move. So I'm going to grab just my spines, spine 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I see the problem there. It looks like it's in spine 4. So if we go to spine 4, I'm going to need to paint some influence underneath here. So I'm just going to go underneath and click a couple times, click some influence, and then hold shift to smooth it out. And I'm hoping that this fixes the problem. It might create new problems, but let's see. Oh, there we go. So now, oh dang it, there's some, what is that? There's some points in the shoulder that also don't have influence. So I think that's, yeah, you see how they get these like really sharp points in here? We don't want to keep those kind of things because these will cause problems, these polygons. So let's go up, or let's go down to shoulders. Okay, so it's related to the shoulders not moving it. So maybe what I'll do is I'll maybe attach that to the shoulder by adding weight paint influence underneath the shoulder joint, so that all of these hopefully can follow suit. And then I'm going to hold shift to smooth that out. Okay, so hopefully that fixes something. Let's see. Okay, that's a little bit better. We're still getting some weird stuff happening with the arms. I'm not sure why though, because the arms thought were in a good shape. Let's move both the left arm and the right arm at the same time. I mean, just keep, maybe, I don't know what's going to, forearm the problem? A little bit. Okay, I think it's the forearm. So what I'm going to do is turn off symmetry for a second. And just on this arm here. Oh, I see it. Look at that. There's like a little pixel in there that has no home. We're going to paint some influence in there so that they aren't being left behind. Now I'm going to hold shift to smooth out the transition so that nothing is too sharp. We'll do the same thing to the left forearm. Oh, it looks like that one doesn't have a problem. It looks like it has those pixels covered, or not pixels, polygons. So let's bring up that arm and take a look. That's looking much better. And let's take a look at the right forearm. Let's go ahead and bend that. Much better. Great. And let's go up to the shoulders. Much better. All right. So that's what the issue was the arm just wasn't painting the underneath the cat. So that looks much better. Much smoother deformations. Yeah, looks good. Okay, let's save. WASD, save. All right. All right, now we're on to the part that I've been fretting the most, and that is the face and the neck. We're here, though. We're here. We got to do it. So I'm going to rename some of these bones. This one, which is currently called joint 7, I'm going to call this one neck underscore 1. And then that would make this one neck underscore 2. And then we would have our head. Okay, so let's go to neck 1 and see what that's like. Not bad, not bad. I see some problems, but it's not the worst. I'm going to turn off X-ray mode for a moment so that we're just seeing the outer side of it like this. I'm going to go to neck number 1, and I'm just going to grab the weight paintbrush, dial it down a lot, and make sure that this neck goes all the way through to the back and bottom of the character. So I'm just kind of painting some weight in there, and then I'm holding shift and I'm smoothing out that weight influence so that our neck has a nice transition. And now when we rotate our neck, we're getting all that movement and some new problems. So maybe I'll erase a little bit of that influence out there and then smooth that out. Let's take a look at that. Ooh, I'm getting more problems, so maybe let's add that influence back in. Let's take a look at maybe neck number 2. Let's do neck 1 and 2 together. Okay, I'm going to start off by just smoothing out both of their influences, because they were making a little bit too sharp of a transition for the neck bones. So smoothing out the weight paint means you have a more gradual influence of the bones. So now let's try neck number 1. Looks a little bit better. I'm mostly going to be having the cat's head turn left and right, so that's the motion I'm most concerned about. Up and down, I'm not going to be doing too much, I think, but it's best, if you can, best to give yourself choices. So I do want to maybe add a little bit of weight influence underneath the neck of the character so that this neck will move all of this stuff. Let's take a look at the neck now. getting this really sharp and kind of bad folding happening here. I don't really want folding of the skin. So let's go to neck number 2 and add some influence under there. Smooth out that influence with a gradient. And grab both neck 1 and 2 and smooth out the doubling effect. Doubling happens when you have 2 sets of polygons, both experiencing the same amount of influence from 2 different bones. You start getting things where they separate dramatically when animated, which looks really bad. I'm trying to avoid those. So up and down motion looks pretty good. I mean, the folding's actually not that bad, mostly because you won't see the folding because that'll be attached to the top of the head of somebody. Let's go down to neck number 2. Oh, there we go. The head controller is a problem. So I see the head is trying to do a lot of the neck work. I'm going to erase a lot of that. That's probably where I'm getting a little issue. I'm just going to erase some of that influence and then smooth out that transition so that the head is really just controlling everything after the neck. Meow. Neck 2. Go to that neck 1, 2, and the head layer. I see now we have some missing polygons. So I'm just gonna, smooth out the weight paint in there. Adding the cat. Okay, so now we should probably have a lot smoother motion now. Let's take a look. Ignore everything after the neck and head. So I'm just looking at the neck right now. We'll work on the face last. Head here. Okay, that's actually pretty good. It's pretty much what I wanted to see. So I'm going to save my work. Let's go to the next joint here. All right, so we got our first ear position. I really want more of the head to control above the face as well. So I'm going to grab my weight paint brush and maybe reduce its strength, which is at 100% value, instead to 55% strength, and paint over all the parts that I want the head to really move, which is, like most of the head. I want it to move from the head bone rotation. Don't really want the ears to move from that part. So I'm just grabbing the head here, maybe even grabbing some of the cheeks, maybe even a little bit underneath the jaw. And I'm going to smooth out those transitions between areas. There we go. Smoothing it all out. Nice and smooth. I have no idea how hard it would be to rig a cat. There are way more complicated creatures than I initially thought. All right, so now let's see what happens. All right, we're getting a little bit of doubling effect. We'll have to fix that by erasing influence from certain bones. But yeah, this is definitely these are the bones that I want to move with the head controller. It's looking pretty good, except minus the doubling. So let's go to some of the doubling problems, which was the ear. Going to erase the influence around here. So I only want the ear to rotate the ear. Methods. So I'm just erasing influence of polygons, and then we're going to smooth out that transition, holding shift to smooth out our weight influence. Good. And then let's go to the next ear. Same idea. Let's erase the influence so that our ear is only going to move the ear, nothing else. And then we'll smooth out that transition. So you get a nice fluid ear, fluid muscles. And let's take a look. Let's give it a little rotation. Cool. So that ear looks good. Let's take a look at this ear. I feel like I'm one of those doctors who sticks the thing in your ear. Yeah, that looks good. A lot of doubling, which is not good. I'll show you where the doublings happen. Okay, I see. There it is. So it looks like the eyeball is causing the problem. Right now, the eye is trying to influence all the skin around the eye, I just wanted to care about the eyeball. So to fix this, we're going to switch our projection type to no projection, hold Alt and delete all parts of the model that have the eye influence other than the eyeball. And I only want 100% influence for the other part. Let's go to the other eyeball, same idea, I'm going to erase the doubling. And now, hopefully, our head controller moves a bit better. Okay, that's actually good. It looks bad. It looks like it's worse, but we've eliminated the doubling effect happening in the forehead. We have new problems now, but we'll fix those. So how we'll fix the new problems is in the head controller, we're going to grab our projections and set this to projection type. And what we do is we just need to paint all the skin around the eyes and around the upper face, since we want all of this to move around when the head moves, but we don't really want anything past that to move. So I'm just going in there with a tiny brush, tiny influence. We have symmetry turned on, and I'm just painting around the eyeballs very carefully so that we're influencing the right geometry, the ones that we want to move when the head controller moves. So this purple paint is just called influence. We're painting influence on all the geometry that I want to move when somebody has their head controller rotated. I kind of want the inner body as well to do that, so I might just overshoot for a moment and just kind of paint in there. It's going to be accidentally grabbing the eyeball, but luckily the eyeball is a separate piece of geometry, which is great because then we could just change projection off and then subtract that influence. And same idea over here. Make sure that I'm not grabbing that eyeball. We go back, turn off projection. Actually, can I hide the eyeballs? Oh, I can't. It's looking pretty good. Let's get a little bit closer, a little bit more personal with the upper mouth and stuff. I want that part to move with the head controller. Really, the only thing I don't want to move is the lower jaw, since the lower jaw, I want it to be controlled by a separate bone so that we give the ability to have the cat meow and talk if it needs to. Let's see a little bit of a doubling back here at the top. Let's go ahead and smooth out that doubling. Okay, so now if we rotate the head, ooh, getting some problems still. What is that? Oh, I see. Looks like the lower jaw is influencing the nose and the snout. We definitely don't want that. So I'm going to erase the influence so that the jaw is only touching the lower jaw and nothing else. This is also the reason why when we model characters, it's useful and practical to have their bodies as widespread as possible, so that when the rigger goes in with the weight painting, they're not suffering. They're not suffering with trying to paint the correct influences and stuff. I'm going to maybe lower this influence over here because I really just want the lower jaw to be the only thing that moves. And then I'm going to use Shift to smooth out that transition. And then now we should have a pretty nice meow movement, little lower mouth movement. Compared to the head controller, I am seeing some problems now because there's some hidden polygons I'm struggling to paint, so they're not moving. Oh, hello, Nicola. Welcome. Today we're working on rigging a cat. Right now we're on the last part of it, which is the hardest part for me, which is rigging the face. And what's happening is there's polygons in here that are not moving when I want them to move. Trying to think of the best way to paint those so that we can get the movement that we want. Yeah, this is going to be a major problem if I can't paint those. If I can't paint those areas, it's going to be hard for me to rig the face. The other option, which I wanted to avoid, was just like erasing all the influence from the head and just manually redoing this. So we'll probably do that right now because I don't like the way the head geometry is coming. So I'm going to grab all of the. I think I'm happy with the neck, but let me double check. The neck looks good. Ignore the face for now. See, the neck looks good there, and neck number 2 looks good there. So it's really just the head I want to redo. So I'm going to grab all of this geometry, and with that, let's just see what happens if we just click on the weight brush. And there's some other tools in here that I don't use a lot. This might be where we need it. So they have one called bleed, and that kind of just adds on areas. There's also spray, subtract, and smooth. I'm just going to go ahead and start off by smoothing everything in here and seeing if that helps address some of the rigging problems. So I'm just smoothing out a lot of that weight paint. Then we'll go to the head layer here and I'm just going to add some influence. If we switch this to, okay, where's the weight tool? We'll grab the weight tool. If we switch this to add, so the key with rigging is it's all about influence. It's trying to find out what parts of your model should be influenced by other parts. That's what it really comes down to. So when you look at the whole head, everything that has a color has an influence, which is great. But if I grab the head controller by itself, right now, we see that there's a lot of polygons that I can't paint because they're embedded inside of the model. And that's a big problem for me because I can't essentially, you hide the whiskers. For whatever reason, I can't paint those directly. So here's a hack I found. The hack is to set your model to X-ray, so now you're able to see through it. And in X-ray mode, another thing to change is go to your weight brush. They have an option that says visible only. If you turn this off and set it to all things, now it's going to paint influence on polygons that you can't see. Oh crap, I have a meeting in 15 minutes. It's amazing what you're doing now. Oh wow, and hello from Poland. Thanks for being here. Yeah, just having some fun. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the head controller here. And this time I'm going to paint right through the model. So I'm painting through the model. It's painting all things in there now, even the ones that we can't see. It's a lot heavier calculation because it has to account for hidden faces. So that's why I don't really recommend using this right away. And it doesn't fix all problems. So for right now, you just eliminate the eyeballs. So I'm going to turn off projection type and then make sure that the eyeballs are separate. And now if we try to move the cat head, we grab our head controller and rotate it. Now the eyeballs, for the most part, stay put. We'll have to do the same thing to the lower mouth. But now we're just giving a little bit of movement. I'll probably just keep the movement very subtle so that we aren't running into too many issues. All right, we have to do the same thing for the lower mouth as well, though. So I'm going to grab the head layer and grab our weight paintbrush, turn on projections, and now we're projecting through the mouth, even into that top mouth column, since that was an area that I wasn't able to paint before because it's internal. You can also go inside your model too. We can break the laws of physics and just go in there and just paint what needs to be painted. So right now I'm looking at the top of the upper mouth, and I'm literally painting influence on it so that we're able to move that with the head controller. If we don't do this, it will always be a problem. So we do have to go in there every once in a while and frustratingly go into the model and paint influence on stuff that no one's going to see, but they're only going to see it if incorrectly if you don't do your weight paint. All right, and then with all that selected, I'm now going to hold shift and hit smooth, and I'm smoothing out all the geometry, smoothing out all the weight paint in there, hoping that it is going to smooth out some of those bumps that we were facing earlier. Oh wow, look at that. I'm seeing that the inner eyelids don't have any influence. Oh no, they do. Sorry, that was just a coloring trick. Okay, so now let's take a look at the head controller. When we give it a rotation, it looks much cleaner now. Now the mouth, for the most part, stays put until we go too far up or too far down. But if we turn off our X-ray mode and temporarily turn off our weight paint brush, I just want to make sure that it kind of works. So I'm going to switch this to the standard viewer for a second. We're out of our weight paint. I'm going to grab an eyeball or grab a head controller and see what happens. So it's close. There's still some problems because eyeballs are going to leave their sockets if we turn 90 degrees. So when I see stuff like this, sometimes it makes me think, should we even rig the eyes? Should I just bake the eyes into the head so that they don't really have to move? I'm still kind of thinking about doing that. Or what I can do is maybe just mostly animate from an earlier bone, like the back of the neck here. This joint here, I like the ears. I'm happy with the ears being rigged. So maybe we'll just keep the cat. We could just focus on that. We could just have the cute, I like the cat's ears. We can maybe have the cat ears be rigged, but then we could maybe eliminate everything else except for the lower jaw. I wanted to have the character's eyes like move around and stuff, because that would be really cool. But I'm not sure if I want to do that at all costs, because it is a big cost right now to. Because right now I can't rotate the head without the eyes falling out. But we could fix this if we just turn off the rig and make it so the eyeballs can't really move. Meow from New York. Oh wow, hello. Oh goodness, I have a meeting in 10 minutes now. I will need to jump off. I guess it's taking a little bit longer to rig this character than I thought, but I'm learning a lot in the process. I like the lower jaw, so I do want to keep this rigged so that we can create the meow. Blah 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 blah. Meow 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 meow. To make meow sounds. I'm gonna just call this one jaw. So I guess maybe the main issues I'm facing right now is the eyeballs. I wanted to give them the ability to move like this, but it's causing a lot of problems with the head rig. Because right now when we rotate the head, it's so close. It's just the eyeballs. I gotta think about this. What if, okay, new idea. What if I give the eyeballs the same influence as the head? Would that fix the problem? So now the eyeballs are rigged 1-to-1 with the face geometry. So in theory, they should all move together now. So let's go back to our standard view, turn off weight paint for a second. And if we grab the head controller and rotate it, oh, but we're still getting the doubling effect. They're doubling because I have two sets of weight influences on the eyes. So let's go to the eyes again, go to our rigging somewhere. Where's the rigging? Oh, there's rigging. And I'm going to go back to the eyes. And then I'll select the left eye and the right eye, and I'll just tell it to turn off influences here. No influences. Okay, so now they have no influence from the eye controller. They have only influence from the head controller. So they should only move with the eyes now. Cool. So now the eyes are pretty much fixed. And that's okay. I mean, I wanted to have the ability to rotate the eyes, but not at the cost of destroying the model. So that's fine. And it looks like the head is also not moving the top of the head very much. So we're gonna maybe turn projection back on and maybe make sure that visible only is checked on for this part. And just gonna add some influence in the top of the head here so that these actually move all of the head and don't eliminate parts. And then I'm holding shift to smooth out that influence. So that, I don't want the ears to really be moved by the head. I want to be able to move the ears separately. Okay, so pretty much all the upper head is looking good now. Let's take a look at the rotation. That looks really good. Oh, see some weird thing happening with the jaw. You saw it too, right? Whoa. What is that? Oh, I see. It's the lower head. So, okay, new idea. I'm going to open the jaw. Really terrifying. And temporarily, I'm going to erase its influence just so I can kind of start off fresh. So no influence from the jaw right now. And then let's go to the head joint and tell it to bias the jaw so that it will temporarily move all this stuff underneath it as well. Smoothing out the differences. Okay, so now the head should move everything that's in purple except for the jaw, which is good. And then we want to tell the jaw to only influence that little part on there. So I'm going to grab my weight tool and then start adding some weights to the jaw. And this is what we do want to move. When the cat opens its mouth, I want to have that ability. So this is why we paint the weight. And then I want the inside of the jaw to move as well. So we got to go inside the cat's mouth. It's kind of hard to paint in the ear. So sometimes if you Control D and set your clipping distance to tiny, that way you can go inside of a tiny area and paint details. Then I'm going to hold Shift to kind of smooth out the transition. So now the jaw can just move this little part right here. Maybe if I open it up 90 degrees, I can maybe get into the mouth a little bit easier. Actually, it does kind of help. So I'm just painting some influence. There we go. So now I can see so actually this is a pro tip that I'll share, which is when you're modeling your character, if you want to avoid problems with jaws, model your character with an open mouth, since that will eliminate a lot of problems when you get to the rigging phase. So right now I'm smoothing it out, smoothing out the influence. Cool. So now if I rotate the jaw back up 90 degrees, that's a mouth closed. And now we can go meow, 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 meow. Great. All right, we got about 4 more minutes before I have to jump into a meeting. Let's take a look at the head controller, see if it's happy. It's almost happy. It looks like it's still not happy with the bottom jaw. So if I grab all of it, if I grab the entire head plus the jaw now, oh, I see, because now there's a little bit of black area that's not influenced it by anything. So that's why we're getting some problems. So to fix that, grab my big brush, smooth it out, and just smooth out the data between the areas. So if there's always going to be some stuff, some influence, I'm just smoothing it all out. Now we should be able to move it pretty seamlessly. Almost seamlessly. Whoa, did you see that? There was like some weird spikes. Oh, I see. I accidentally painted through the body. Let's get rid of those. Okay, so yeah, it looks like we get some pretty good motion now out of the cat head. Let's set this to world rotate. So yeah, we can get this kind of motion now. We can get this kind of motion. Looks like it starts to fall apart when you get to that distance. So I might need to turn on X-ray mode again and use that trick as before to smooth out some stuff. So I'm smoothing through the mouth now, not just the visible part. I'm smoothing out invisible parts. Go to the head controller. That looks good. Now the whole head moves together all as one cohesive piece. Yeah, it looks really good. And then let's grab that jaw. Great, and now we have a jaw that kind of works. I won't go too ham with the jaw. We'll leave it at that. But there we have it, folks. We've fully rigged a cat for a customer. This is what it looks like in Substance Painter. This is what it's going to look like when we bring it into AR later. This is the cat that we painted. We did all the painting yesterday. I used a lot of projection mapping techniques as well as texture painting. Got these really pretty reflections and stuff in the eyeballs and good shadows. A lot of good hair is in there. So that's what the cat's going to look like when it's done. And now with the work that we just did today, now the cat's going to be able to move. This is the character now. This is a character puppet that can be animated and be brought to life. And this is a big deal because now I can have fun just animating later today and not have to worry about all the other complicated stuff. And we have the ability to move the ears separately to create all those expressions for the cat. I'm just exploring my rig right now, going to the eyeballs. The eyeballs don't do anything because we decided we're not going to allow the cat's eyes to rotate that way. It was going to be too hard to rig for me. So yeah, we got a little jaw motion, and then we have a tail. The tail can totally work. We have legs that can totally bend correctly now, which is important. So yeah, we're all done. So thank you all so much for tuning in to the show. I got to run, go to a meeting, but if we have some time later today, I will try to do another stream. But yeah, meeting for now, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hopefully you learned a lot about cats and rigging. I'm going to be a nerd forever, and I welcome other nerds. If you want to help support me, I now sell merchandise. I have an Etsy store. If you go on to Instagram, it's at the top of my bio. I'm going to go to it right now. I'm going to my Instagram. If you go to the bio, click on the link tree. I have a new category called merch. You can click on it, and I'm making a bunch of nerdy t-shirts. I have one that says real-time rendering. I made that in Illustrator, selling it for 20 bucks. And then I have another one that I made called XR Creator because I want that to be a thing for more folks. And then another one called the Future Proofs if you're trying to future-proof yourself. And then I need another one called Rendering. So yeah, if you want to support me, you should definitely think about getting some of my merchandise and becoming a nerd all the way to the core. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. That's a wrap. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Bye-bye.